This paper to me is one of the best papers in 2017. And as stated in the title, the paper is all about making wireless devices to reinstall the keys and as a consequence forcing nonce reuse. In the next few slides, I will provide you a brief background on the keys, the nonce, and why reusing nonce is really bad. So talking about the keys, we have to first mention the original shared secret, which frankly is the password you use for setting up the Wi-Fi in the access point. We call it AP, and for setting up the Wi-Fi profile on your own computer. From that shared secret, a master key will be made, and then from the master key, several other keys will be derived. There are two main reasons. First, because the master key is so important, we do not want to use it often. Secondly, in reality, there are so many different scenarios involving Wi-Fi devices that we really need flexibility and isolation in wireless network key management. For example, here we look at the use of the GTK and the PTK. As seen in this picture, the GTK is a group temporal key, and it is used for encrypting unicast and broadcast messages. So everyone in the same authorized group will have the same key. On the contrary, PTK is pairwise transient key and can only be shared between one AP and one client. So for example, in here the access point share key 1 and the client here share key 1, and then with the client number 2 we have key 2 and key 3, etc. So note the keywords temporal and transient in the names of the key. Basically that means the key can be reset. For example, when a computer C disconnected itself from the network, the AP will initiate the group key refresh to all of the remaining members in the group, so that next time when C rejoin the group, C will have to negotiate with the AP and be verified again. There are many other keys, but for now, for this presentation, we will just mainly focus on the GTK and the PTK. So we know something about the keys. We also know that every time a key got reinstalled, the nonce will be reused. But what is nonce? And how much of an impact does it have on security? So without going too much into cryptography, let me try to explain to you the importance of nonce. Message P will be chopped into equal size plain text blocks, say P1 and P2, and so on. Each plain text block will be combined with an encrypting block to form an encrypted text block. The key for a strong encryption is the secrecy and the randomness of the KS, as we can see here. Let's look at a hypothetical scenario where we have P equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's say the KS here is 1. When we combine the P and the KS, we're going to have C, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as you can see, the pattern here is really recognizable. Compared to the case where we have KS equal to 1, 5, 3, 7, 2, for example, when we combine this KS with the P, we're going to have 2, 7, 6, 9, 11 for C. So as you can see, the more random the KS is, the stronger the cryptography, and the nonce contributes greatly to that random factor. So if nonce is being reused, instead of KS1 and KS2 here, we will have something similar like this. KS1 here and the same KS1 here. So basically with the same nonce, we'll have the same key stream. And if we XOR the ciphertext encrypted by the same key stream, we will have the XOR of the two original plain text. There's a lot more to the cryptanalysis, and this example is very simple, and you're more welcome to look deeper into the cryptanalysis. But for now though, let's just say reusing nonce will make the cryptography very predictable, and that lead to a huge possibility of being hacked. So at the heart of this exploitation, and also as the security of Wi-Fi, is the four-way handshake. So before a supplicant, which is a client, which can be a laptop or a computer, before it can connect to a Wi-Fi, it needs to go through three phases: the association stage, the four-way handshake stage, and the group key handshake stage. And this attack is mainly revolving around the four-way handshake. And in here we have the what we call the formal state machine of the four-way handshake. And briefly, the four-way handshake works like this. Initially, the AP will send message 1 to the client. Upon the receiving of message 1, the client will calculate the S nonce, the PTK, based on the PMK, the A nonce and S nonce. And after the client computed all of that, it will send a message 2 with the S nonce to the AP. When AP asks, which is message 1, the client will derive the pair transient key and reply with message 2 some kind of an acknowledgement that, hey, I got your message and here's what I computed for you. Upon receiving the message 2, the AP will derive the PTK, which is the same with the PTK that the client calculated here, so that the two of them can agree on the same PTK. And then after that, the AP will send back to the client a message 3 with the GTK, the group key. Once again, the client will, upon the successful receipt of message 3, will reply to the AP with a message 4. And right after that, the client will install the PTK, the GTK, and then on the AP side, upon receipt of message 4, the AP will install the PTK. Now note that on the last step, when the PTK and the GTK got installed, by the formal state machine, the client still continuously listen to the receipt of message 3 and even message 1. For example, sometimes the AP was not able to receive the message 4, and it keeps sending message 3 to the client. In such case, the client is supposed to be able to receive the message 3 and go back one state to this state so that it can send out message 4 again. So we're going to see more in the next slides. But for now, that's basically how the four-way handshake works. So here we have the state machine that we discussed in a previous slide. And but in reality, the implementation of this state machine varies depending on the software and hardware vendors. That leads to different exploitation cases that I'm gonna explain next. So let's start with the plain text replay. So in this simplest case, upon receipt of message 3 with the GTK inside it, the supplicant install the PTK and the GTK, but then the attackers will stop the message 4 sent by the client from arriving at the AP, and they will also stop the regular data communication from the supplicant to the authenticator. The effect of that leads to the authenticator, the AP, assuming that there's something wrong on the client side, that the client side was not able to receive message 3 transmitted in here. So the AP will resend message 3 again. Once again, back to the state machine, even after successful installation of the PTK and GTK, the client still actively listening to the message 3. So upon the receipt of message 3, the client will just follow this route, go back to the previous state, and reinstall the PTK and the GTK again. So this forced the reinstallation of the key, leading to nonce reuse, and from that the security of the handshake got compromised. Note that by holding the message 3 at this point, holding it for a certain amount of time before releasing it, the attacker can control the amount of nonce gonna be reused at this point. After this reinstallation of PTK and GTK, the attacker will just release the normal data traffic, and everything will, besides the nonce reuse, the attacker in this case will also be able to replay the unicast and the broadcast messages from captured from the AP earlier. A more complicated version of the plain text is the encrypted, that is what I call the encrypted case number 1. So in here we have the diagram of the plain text attack, and in the encrypted case attack, the only difference is this step will fail because the client, after installing the PTK and GTK in this step, will not accept the plain text message 3 anymore. So that means the same attack applied used in the plain text case will not be successful in this case. So in order to mitigate that scenario, the attack in the encrypted case number 1 exploit a race condition between the wireless NIC and the main CPU. As we can see in here, 2 legitimate message 3 package were replayed almost instantly, and reach the wireless NIC almost at the same time, and from the wireless NIC the package will be forwarded to the main CPU. So before the NIC was able to, well, after the NIC successfully installed the PTK and GTK, and before it started to block regular message 3, another regular message 3 already in the system was processed by the CPU, and the CPU already initiate an install key command, forcing the wireless NICs to reinstall the new PTK and GTK before starting to block regular message 3. In general, we can see that the message 3, whether it is sent in plain text or protected by an encrypted key encryption method. In either case, the attack is still possible because the method of attack does not rely on the secrecy or on the encryption being used. It is also important to note that in the encrypted case 1, the vulnerability is not from the state machine, not from the design of the four-way handshake, but rather a vulnerability within the supplicant system between the wireless NIC and the main CPU. So with encrypted case 2, it's almost the same as encrypted case 1. Attacker will replay to encrypted message 3. And the reason why the attacker cannot use plain text, because in this case, a previous four-way handshake was successfully executed. That means the AP and the client already established good encryption. But still, replay is still successful because with the same principle, exploiting the same race condition, the attacker will still be able to force the reinstallation of the PTK and the GTK and forcing the nonce reuse. Even after a successful four-way handshake, sometimes the pairwise rekey has to happen. And every time a pairwise rekey happens, this kind of message will be sent out, and the attacker can only then the attacker can capture this kind of package, and that means the attack schedule of the attacker will be greatly dependent on the pairwise rekey schedule, which is about happening every hour in most AP. So just like PTK, there's a need to refresh the GTK, the group key. And here we see the two cases of the group key handshake attack. The key difference between the two cases is the timing of the GTK installation on the AP side. So on the left here, the AP immediately install a new GTK right after sending out the message 1 to the clients. On the right, the AP actually wait for all the clients to send a reply, in this case message 2 here, and only when the AP receive all the replies from the client, then it will install the GTK. So in the case 1, it's similar to the four-way handshake. The attacker will stop the reply. The authenticator will keep sending the message 1, and the attacker will just replay the message 1 again and force the reinstallation of the GTK on the client side. In case 2, before replay the message 1 again, the attacker will need to replay message 2 so that the AP can install the GTK, so that the key being used by both the AP and the client are the same. The attacker can then replay the group data sent by the AP. If we don't execute this step, the authenticator will still use the old GTK. That will lead to the problems of replaying the package sent by the AP, which is using the old GTK, to the client. The client will discard, in that case, the client will discard the package because it is now using a new GTK which is different from, so that will defeat the purpose of replaying group data frames. Finally, there's a case of attacking AP fast BSS transition. Fast BSS transition was added by 802.11r in order to reduce roaming time when a client moves from one AP to another in the same protected network. Why this handshake is very similar to the four-way handshake, it is important to note that none of the message contain a replay counter. The replay protection relies, in this case, heavily on the A nonce and S nonce, and for such reason, there is no need to the attacker doesn't need to jam or block the frames, but rather just intercepting and injecting frames. So what I mean is the attacker will wait for a normal handshake to complete, and then it will capture this legitimate packet stream sent by the AP and simply replay it back to the AP. And because so upon the receiving of upon the AP receive this kind of package, it will check and it will see that the A nonce and the S nonce, the MIC, the GTK are all legitimate. It will follow the protocol and send the reassociation response to the client, and after that it will reinstall the PTK. So at this point, the PTK will be forced to reinstall. The nonce got reset, and the security of the protocol got compromised. So finally, to recap all of the attack methods mentioned, let's look at the chart here. This chart describes the vulnerabilities that the major cipher suite have, and in some of them the attacker will be able to forge the packet. It is important to note that with GCMP, this paper believes that it is possible to recover authentication key, which is really bad news since CGMP is expected to be adopted at high speed in the new WiGig standard coming up in the very near future.